So this song is one of the more recent ones I've worked on, which came a while after the album. And yeah, it was I think a couple of years now. It was just before lockdowns, really. There was this beautiful soul that many of us had the absolute privilege of being in his presence. He was just such a vibrance and just such a heart, like the biggest heart. And his name is Doug, and he really stood in as this kind of, I guess, archetype for so many of us on many different ways. Whatever I think we needed, he was this incredible chameleon energetically. Well, he wasn't. It's just who he was authentically, but he was such a big space that he could fill, so many gaps in us. And he was a real father figure and mentor to a lot of our little group, and a real supporter. Like he had I think a real gift of vision of just life and consciousness and community, and it was really important for him that he let us know how important we were to him and how important all of our individual efforts and journeys are through a greater, larger piece of the puzzle of living, I guess, here on this earth. Just like no other, and I think came at such a crucial time for many of us, and we were really struggling. And part of my journey that I was sharing at the beginning of the podcast with my mental health and suicidality, Doug was a very big part of helping to heal that as well. And it wasn't so much in words or support; it was in an experience that was just him being fully present for me, much like this. And I really was able to shed and go into that, that space and that fear and that terror and the loneliness of that feeling. I guess the core or the root of of why I was really feeling like that and out of sync with myself. And he just held me in silence, and I've never experienced such palpable and strong healing presence from another, like just space holding. He was instrumental in my, I think, recovery and healing and growth from those pretty dense kind of frequencies. So when he passed, it was like having your heart broken and smashed into a million pieces. It hurt a lot. Really sudden, really unexpected passing. That I think we all feel in retrospect was just its perfect timing for him and his journey in his kind of mission. He I think it was as it was meant to be, but I suppose because he was very present in our lives at that moment of his transition as well, it really felt that space and that hole open up in our fields. So it took a little bit of time to. We didn't want to grieve, obviously, but also wanting to celebrate his energy and I guess what he was here instilling in us, and I guess to try and continue that work within each other and ourselves, and to honor him that way and to love him that way. So, and obviously a part of my expression is music, and because it's a form, or it's a medium that can be somewhat immortalized. So I didn't think too deeply about it, but I was just playing on the piano, and just this song just started coming through, and then I quickly knew who the song was about or for, and it was to honor this journey, this life of Doug's, and also his journey, into the all expanded awareness of the next phase. So we held a little gathering here just post his funeral, to honor him, I guess, and to pay our respects and to remember him, a small pocket of us. So this song, I at that time had kind of only just come out, and performed it kind of live for everyone, and that felt really beautiful to be able to do in that kind of moment. So then I kind of got to producing this song after that, realizing that that song for me is a beautiful way to celebrate and to remember him. And I think like just also once again it's all ties into self as well. Like, you know, through Doug's death and passing, it brought that reflection back to me, and it's something that I, you know, now wrapped up in my own thoughts of death. Doug is within that as well, you know, thoughts with him. So I feel like this song to me once again represents a dying to some degree, but maybe in a more hopeful, optimistic sense than the song that I shared with you, that was maybe the darker version of death. This feels, I think this expresses a way or a feeling of how I would like death to be. So this song is called A Passive Defeat.
Mm.
Man, thanks for letting me on a Doug with being able to play that and share that. It feels really nice to be able to, yeah, give him a bit of space in this.
Yeah, it feels like I just feel my whole body's quite alive right now and tingly, and yeah, I feel these like almost like pins and needles and electricity running all the way up my spine and throughout my arms, and it's just so interesting how much, how life-giving death can be. Yeah, and I wanted to thank you and just kind of honor Doug in this moment as well. Yeah, just what you shared around your experience with him, and it sounds quite inspirational to be able to have such an effect on the people around us, to, for that song, for that piece of music to be a result of someone's life and death. It's quite a beautiful thing. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I think after that, I'm reminding myself officially, from that I decided that it would be a really great idea to write a song inspired by all of my friends and people that I care about, and making the tracks would just be named after them. So that'll probably be an album to come in years. But I kind of thought that would be a really beautiful way to celebrate, the beautiful connections, and once again, like somewhat immortalize, so long as hard drives and internet exists, these amazing things. And yeah, I also like you're a huge part of my circle and connection and community as well. So I'm really grateful for your beautiful gift and sharing in the world, and how that allows so much to emerge through your medium, and others can share themselves. It's the same, it's the same frequency and the same art form here of platforming and inspiring and connecting. So I'm really grateful, I guess, to be given this opportunity to be like courageous and share this part of what I do, my music, and feel personally feel a bit more like what's the word, happy and more musical about myself, instead of all the other ventures and projects that I'm doing. It's really nice to pause and reflect, and to have this amazing experience with you, to reshare this to myself as well. And I've been really fortunate to have a similar opportunity recently with a friend who is about to release a documentary, and we did a very similar kind of like flowy concept. And he was like, look, I got like 7 episodes, hours and hours of footage. I got like no music. And he's like, can you help out? I'm like, oh, yeah, that sounds terrifying, but okay, yeah, I can. And then I'm like, how am I going to do that? That's, schoolwork and stuff is something I'm kind of like really into, but it takes a lot of time. So I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to deliver anything that's going to be good enough. And then we had a chat and just decided to basically spend a couple of days together recording live work in just complete flow state. And he had this amazing instrument, beautiful synthesizer that was like a one-stop shop, and it was a very different style because my production, I'm recording field recordings and live instruments and using samples and stuff, and it's just a mix of a lot of different things, which becomes time consuming. So the idea of doing a live kind of recording session was like, okay, it kind of took the pressure off. And it was really great. So we just spent a couple of days together with this amazing instrument, and I really got an opportunity to really sit in the present, the presence of the flow state with my music. And yeah, I think about 7 hours of music we've got to there's a lot there to get through, but yeah, that was a really inspirational kind of experience and opportunity, much like this, to kind of help me to maybe carve out more time for my musical projects, and Because it's really beautiful, I guess, to feel it being appreciated, I guess, for how it was intended. And that's, I guess, as an artist, we all kind of struggle with whatever form we're doing of, oh, how's it going to be received? How's it got value? And I usually tell people, well, if it's, enough to help one person out or inspire them, or, kind of, that's worth doing. It's worth kind of putting out. So I kind of, appreciate this opportunity to take some of my own advice in that regard. And yeah.
I think we could all use a bit more of that. And
Yeah.
I was just kind of having a chat with Jay a bit earlier around this, and we've touched on this point in our conversations a few times. And it's quite inspirational for me as well, just to be kind of reminded of the importance of doing that. And I've got a wondering, like, I'm not sure what you think about this, but a wondering around why do you think it might be so hard to let such beauty out? And like and why are we can feel to be, I know from personal experience, so glitchy in that area, and why it does take a bit of back and forth before we can open up and share that, because that beauty, once it touches other people, like that experience just happened right now, and it's still kind of going on inside of me, and I'm sure inside of many other people that are kind of witnessing this space. And I've got a wondering around, kind of, because it's definitely something that is quite contagious and helps kind of the blossoming. And that's the whole thing around the podcast, is kind of an attempt to help allow for that blossoming to take place, or to inspire it, or to breathe some sense of life into it. And I'm wondering if you have maybe an inkling or an insight into the difficulty of that opening.
Yeah, well, look, I think I experience it, and I see it time and time again with I guess people that I'm really fortunate enough to share time and space with, that we have these horrible limiting self-beliefs, generally, most of us, and we have a lot of doubt, and I think a lot of it is born from fear. I think fear is probably the undercurrent, or the root that then by extension creates these issues, because we then find it almost paralyzing to break a mold or to step outside of what's safe, this like illusion of safety. I think that especially in Australia, in the West, we've got this kind of like tall poppy syndrome, and we like, be like humble and not like do anything too outrageous or crazy, just like stay in line and do the right thing. And it's all these kind of tropes of the right way to do things, or to live or be. And I think a lot of that comes through colonization, from religion, and all these larger concepts, I think, that impact the modern day person in really subtle ways, but really strong ways, in terms of how it chokes us off from actually feeling like acceptable. I mean, look. You look at our policies with Indigenous Australians, or even like queer or women's rights and stuff. Like, we're so behind. There's no progression. It takes forever for any significant and real deep change to happen in this current society. So when you've got all of that stacked against you, and you kind of like intrinsically know that it's going to be a grind to do something different, I think this is where it gets hard for us to reinvent ourselves, or to heal, or to do something new, like to, because it's all this results based kind of society, where it's like, oh, everything's good or bad. Like, it's so binary, our thinking, whereas it's just like, well, being shit's okay as well. And this is, I think, where we're not allowed to be in our communities or our families or in our relationships or in our friendships or at our jobs. We're not allowed to like be shit or have a bad day or a bad moment. We can't make mistakes, if everything has to be polished and, TikTok ready or whatever. And I think that's so crippling and dangerous. It's this pack mentality kind of craziness. So I think in this day and age, to really be yourself, which is obviously unique and individual, that's quite a courageous act in itself. And for most people, I feel that don't have the roadmap to doing that, or they don't even know who they are, and they're trying to discover that, it becomes quite the mountain. So I think this is where we need each other and community or platforms like this to share and to express, to be, I guess, beacons of hope and inspiration and safe spaces for each other to explore, and to crash out, like to make mistakes in this. I think it's like we've got to get cool with like all of that, so that, people can start to feel safe in their vulnerability, so they can start to really, become who they truly are. So yeah, how to do this in the real world, it's very difficult, so I think like community is key here. And then I guess for people that have a gift or a strong desire or calling to face those fears and challenges and step into it, like even this today is like kind of like, felt like so intimidating, and like, oh God, what if everyone just thinks it's horrible and shit? And it's like, well, you know what, even if they did, it's not the point. Like I should be cool with failure, and like everyone just being like, whatever, man, like didn't resonate, like, because it's not about, it's not about me being kind of satiated by other people. It's more about me just doing what my soul or what I know I need to do, putting it out there and just trusting that there was a reason for it. And, maybe one other person will, feel something that's helpful, and that's good enough. And then hopefully by extension, if they see someone's kind of been brave enough to step into their vulnerability or their tenderness and those fears, then that will hopefully also inspire a courage within them as well. And this is why these podcast opportunities, they're terrifying to me. I'm a very kind of private person in terms of like what I kind of do and how I think, because I'm it can be interesting and maybe not exactly mainstream, so I tend to kind of like keep myself somewhat underground, but coming forward or out of the closet, I guess, in an opportunity like this, I think it's beyond me. It's just important to do because I care about people and humanity and where we're going enough to realize that, we all need to, who has the means to kind of step into themselves a bit more, we should, and then we can, hopefully be there to support others that are, in a similar kind of situation. So long answer, but yeah, I think that's it.
Well, I feel like you've definitely done that today with us, and there's definitely for me been a sense of like a realness or something, like just a sense of truth and a presence, and it's felt quite real and not really kind of trying to show something that isn't already kind of purely and authentically there and true. So I just wanted to kind of share that with you, and I think that there's a real power in that. There's a real power in your truth and in stepping into that space with courage. That I've definitely going to kind of take away from this. And it's definitely something that is quite timely, a timely kind of reminder.
I think we all need it. Hey, it's like it's a feedback loop that is a positive one, because you can't really start believing. So we do need a point of reference. I think you need something to bounce off to understand your location and in this reality. So I guess challenging ourselves and stepping up and stepping in where we can really provide a great platform for that self-reflection and to see how we're landing in the real space of everybody else. And I think so long as we're not afraid to make mistakes, or at least if we do make them, we're not afraid to like own that, and make a change.
It's interesting because we're never the same person from moment to moment. Like, we're not the same people that we were when we began this discussion. And that's going to continue to happen. We're constantly on this path of evolution. It's interesting because the film production company is actually called Evolve Digital Media. Just a quick shout out. But there's this evolution that's kind of continually taking place in every moment, and kind of like even the idea of I struggle sometimes with putting things out there in terms of video or content, because I know even just the cringy feeling I get when I look back at kind of, with a light-hearted smile as well, this kind of these older versions of me, and and just watching how that changes and develops is quite a beautiful thing. But it's also the idea of being stuck in a moment of time doesn't feel too nice. It's an interesting space.
Well, I think it can really hold us back if we're not like, if something's come through and we haven't kind of finished the process. Like this album, prime example. Like this, this is why this is like, I started this in, I don't know when the first song, it was maybe 7 years ago, you know, like, and this hasn't been officially launched because I've been sitting on it, and it's like, it's constipated me musically and artistically
and energetically, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. My friend's like, dude, you just got to let it go and move on. Like, just move on and don't say. I'm like, okay, just like always making, more of it. And it's like, so this is really great because this is a cathartic process that through you has now allowed me to just move on musically. Like, I'll never look back. Like, this is time. I mean, but it's like, it's nothing new for me. And it's something that needs to be kind of like birthed and released into its own thing, whatever happens, if anything. But just for my creative process, having it stored up in a jar in a cupboard, it's just kind of like, well, what was the point, So I think like you said, with this the nature of our own evolution and change, as long as we can shut up that fear of like, oh, I don't want to be like immortalized as that version of myself, and we can be gracious enough to like understand that everyone's evolving, like it's all good, and maybe the cringe is actually a beautiful hallmark of the past, just to remind you of how far you've actually come. Because if that moment's making you like cringe out, then you're obviously in a very different space, and that's that's something to celebrate.
And there's a gentleness, that what we pointed to earlier, that comes into the picture of just kind of cradling that part of you that might feel a bit worried, or that might feel, and it's noticing and a cradling, I think, together.
And I think like, because we're both fathers, it helps. Like I think having that relationship, same, like we've all got kids, and that I guess hopefully for people gives us this different perspective on the other, or on another, and that we can love people in a different way, and that's maybe less selfish, more unconditional love. And it's like, well, how would you talk to your own child about their successes and failures? And it'd be you'd hope much the same energy of like, hey, it's okay, like I want you to make mistakes, learn, and that's safe. And so I think like we've just got to do the same to our inner child. We've just got to be good parents of ourselves, and that's really all the relationship is, just like treating all the former parts of ourselves and the wounded parts of ourselves like the child that it likely is.
I've been reading some interesting things around the inner critic and the inner child.
Okay. Yep.
And the self-saboteur. So it seems like we're kind of playing with those different kind of elements right now, and what we're discussing, kind of, it seems quite relevant in this chat. Cool. Thank you so much. Thank you for for having the courage, and for showing up, and for doing this, because everything that we just said. And it feels really good for me. Does it feel good for you, Jay?
It's been wonderful. Absolute honor. It's been lots of fun as well. And maybe somewhere over the rainbow we can do another experimental.
Tell us how we can kind of meet the new baby once it's birthed.
Okay, great. So I'll be on Bandcamp. All my music is being consolidated to Bandcamp under the artist name Shadow Creature. I will provide a link in the description, or that Michael can plug in. The album is called Entheogenesis, and it will be being released on the 7th of the 7th, 2022, which at this time or that time may already be out or not, depending on the podcast release date. But get Michael to put a link in, and just watch that space. Some more music will come in and out. I've got more projects that I'm working on. Hopefully, more ceremonial music for meditations in the future. But feel free to send me an email through the lines and give me some feedback on the music, if you're enjoying it or if it's stirring anything up for you. I really appreciate everyone's time in listening to this and going on this little journey with us. It's been really fun, and hope you're well out there.
Cool. Yeah. Should we leave them with a track? Let's leave them with a track.
Yeah, cool.
Let's do that.
All right, great. Well, let's
start
with the track that started the whole project.
Perfect.
Actually, there's a little story I think that comes in quite nicely with this. So this track, this was the first song that came through with this whole project, and it was really the first song that came to me in any significant way that wasn't like my former style of production, which was very contrived and like polished. And this whole concept was like to record things and not quantize and not have it perfect, so there's slips and mistakes through the whole thing, because I want it to be authentically me and human at that time. So a lot of just once throughs and all the rest. But anyways, what really catalyzed this whole, I guess, awakening of music for me in this kind of expression was this one song, and it came from an experience that I had with a plant medicine, one of the beautiful native plants.
Which one?
It's Acacia cordii.
Nice.
So the track name is Cordii, and the song, is there's a group of melodies that came through this experience that kind of funneled into this track. But in that particular experience, I very amazing gift and lesson that happened, where at the time I was still really experiencing, I guess, my own heartache and pain in really deep ways that was really holding me back. And I knew that I had problems, in my heart space, in the way I was relating to everything, everybody, but myself mainly. So that was one of my intentions of that ceremony, was to, look at what's going on there and why I have these issues, and hopefully gain some insight into, beginning the road to healing. And this plant just, I got taken to this realm or this dimension, and it was much like a giant commercial kitchen, and I could just see this red glowing from my perspective, and I looked down, and my heart was like a little oven that was just emitting this radiant glow in this dark giant kitchen space. And then I was like, okay, this is interesting. And then this shuffling kind of happened, and this little cute, almost Muppet looking, like puppet chef looking critter came out and was looking at me with a chef hat and the whole gear, and then I kind of realized that this was the plant just having a bit of fun with this lesson, and came up to me, and I'm like, well, what's in the oven? And then
what's cooking?
Yeah, what's cooking? And like, and this is all kind of like a intuitive mime style communication, but it was like pointing. It was like your heart. I'm like, oh, okay, it's cooking, cool. Like, is that a good thing? Like, something's going on. And then I asked if this plant could help. So this little puppet walked up and like tried to open up the oven, and it was like locked. So it was like shaking furiously, and then had two legs up on the oven, is like really trying to pull. And it was like, nah, can't get in there. It's all locked up. And I'm like, oh, bummer. Like, that's what I'm here for. Like, what, you can't help. And it's like, no, it's all locked up. You got a guard there, and I can't help you right now. Like, this isn't the night for this. And then I said, okay, well, how do I be prepared for next time? How do I open up this space? It was like, okay, great question. And then it said, this is all kind of telepathic, but also in some words, but it's like, you to heal your heart, you need to be able to speak its language. I'm like, oh, like love. It's like, yeah, love, obviously, absolutely. That's it's, but that is what your heart is. But its language is joy. And I was like, oh, and at that time I was not experiencing really any kind of joy. And then the word joy just flashed up in my eyes, and like, casino style lights, Vegas, like joy. But then in front of it there was a dash and then en, which means within, something that's kind of endogenous. So it was flashing and alternating between joy, and then the plant said you need to cultivate the joy within. That's the key to fixing this and to being more open. The joy within. And the joy within really is just practices that we can do, which are, practices of presence. But it's something that we generate from within. So for me, playing music, like live instruments, that's me creating something from within that didn't exist before, and it brings me joy. So not listening to someone else's thing, I have to do it. So, art, painting, running, dancing, whatever, singing, but whatever we are creating and is endogenous to us. And that was a hell of a lesson, and I've always carried that with me because it was just so hilarious but beautiful. It just made so much sense, and I've really taken that on board as an important staple, I guess, of just my practice and discipline, to understand, at least for me, that the generation of something from within myself and creating it is a part of my heart's language that I need to keep expressing. So.
Is that door a bit more open since that lesson?
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The baked goods are well and truly out of the oven. So
I would like to taste some of those, if that's all right.
So yeah. So here's the track. Cordy Eye. Hope you enjoy it.